Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. This time we're reviewing episode 5 of the most recent series, Dot and Bubble. As always with these, I'm going to talk the first half of the video was spoiler free in case you haven't seen the episode yet, just giving you some general thoughts and opinions on the episode, and then I'm going to jump into some spoilers to talk about the episode in more detail. But don't worry, I'll give you a warning beforehand. And now, let's jump into the episode. Now, going from last week's episode, which was a Dr. Light episode, the Doctor was basically not in it at all, we now have this episode, Dot and Bubble, which you could also somewhat classify as another Dr. Light episode. I know that this was due to Shijigawa being busy shooting, I think, Sex Education, the most recent series of that. So he had like a couple of weeks off from Doctor Who, so to speak, which is why we had the Dr. Light episode, I think, which is also why he's not in this episode as much, but he's definitely in it more than he is in last week's episode, 73 Yards. However, the Doctor and Ruby as well in this episode are mostly appearing literally like on screen within the episodes, and then they get like in-person appearances towards the end of the episode. So maybe lower your expectations a bit on this one. This was certainly a point of the episode that was like the only thing that sort of stood out to me in the mostly negative way, that I was sort of expecting or wishing the Doctor and Ruby to be involved a bit more, like actually be there in person, deal with the problems that were going on within the episode. So yeah, I was expecting a bit more there, but overall, let's talk about this episode. So the premise of this episode is that we are on this futuristic world where the people who live there, they're all literally occupying themselves with a bubble, which very much is representative of, like a cultural bubble, a social bubble. At first, it very much appears like social media, stuck in your social media bubble. And it literally surrounds them at all times. There's just like input from everyone that you're connected to. And we're following this young woman through her day. We very much see that she's like literally stuck within her bubble, like no other way she's communicating or even going about her day. Like she's really dependent on this social media thing, basically. And we do see that the Doctor is trying to contact her because he's like popping up on the screen trying to be like, okay, I have to warn you about something's going on. She's like, who the hell are you? And she like dismisses him. But as the episode goes on, the Doctor and Ruby make contact with this young woman, trying to gain her attention to tell her that something weird is going on. And indeed, something weird is going on this little planet, in this little world of hers. Namely, people are going missing, and we saw this in the trailers. They're being eaten by these very weird, unsettling, nightmare-fueling, thanks for that, Doctor Who, slug thingies that basically devour these people whole, who are, because they're so occupied with their literal bubble, they don't even see the danger around them, like figuratively and literally. So now the Doctor and Ruby are trying to like save this young woman, trying to like get her out of the bubble, trying to get her out of this dangerous area that she's in, trying to figure out how they can save her and the other people who live there with her, and sort of trying to figure out what these slug monsters are. And we're mostly following Lindy. We're following this young woman throughout her day as she comes into contact with these monsters, as she comes into contact with Ruby and the Doctor, having a very rocky relationship with both of them, which is putting it mildly. And that's sort of it. Like I said, the episode doesn't over rely on the presence of the Doctor and Ruby. So if this is something that you were missing in like last week's episode already with 73 Yards, if you're not that big of a friend of like Dr. Light episodes, you might not like that aspect of this episode. However, where this episode is really strong is in its, even though very obvious, still very interesting theming and the issues that it's trying to address. And naturally, you have this whole idea of the bubble, which, is, in this case, is meant in a both figurative and in a literal way, since they literally have this bubble around their heads at all times, so much so that they can't look beyond what's going on. And throughout the episode, the Ruby, I keep saying that, the Doctor and Ruby try to like get this young woman to like break out of her bubble, to see beyond, because she's so stuck in this social media world, but also in her own worldview that has been put upon her, that she's been growing up in, that she like just finds it very hard and near to impossible to like look beyond that, literally, as well. So at first you might think, oh, this is sort of like a critique on, social media or toxic positivity. And it's all about that too. That it's like trying to tell you, there are certain mindsets that people have that they get so stuck in that, especially on social media, we tend to just like sort of live within our own little bubble, that we surround ourselves with almost like yes-sayers, people who already have the same opinions we do. And it basically just becomes like a big echo chamber, which is also sort of literally what this bubble is that surrounds these people as they live their lives. And naturally, it's also very much about that. And I mean, this becomes obvious, I think, as the episode goes on. And I don't think this is a spoiler, because if you paid attention to the trailers, if you paid attention to the casting pool of this episode, there's also naturally a very strong theme surrounding racism. And obviously I'm speaking from a perspective of privilege here, being a white person. And I do have to call myself out here that it probably took me longer than other people to recognize what the deeper actual theme of this episode was going to be. I'm going to jump into some details regarding that later when I talk about spoilers in regards to the stuff that's actually being said within the episode. But this is like the really big theme of this episode that just like runs through the entire storyline, runs through the entire characterization, especially of that young woman that we're following. Because I think this young woman we're following, Lindy, she's not your usual like secondary protagonist character that we get on Doctor Who, because we don't like her. You're not even supposed to like her. Like in like, especially in the very beginning, she sort of appears like a regular sort of secondary character that you get in like as a one-off character in a Doctor Who episode. But very quickly, I think you can pick up on the nuances and the deeper meanings of her actual character. And then you sort of realize as you're watching it who this person really is, what kind of society she's actually been growing up in. And like further and further, those themes become much clearer, much more obvious. And I'm sure there are other people out there who, of course, will pick up on this much more earlier than I did, naturally. And I'm almost like sort of mad at myself because, again, I'm speaking from like a point of privilege. That this took me longer than it would probably have a person of color to see what was actually going on in this episode. Like I don't want to spoil it too much here, but they sow these seeds pretty early on. And if you're paying attention, or if you rewatch this episode, again, this is very much an episode I think you could rewatch and be like, yeah, okay, that was there pretty early. So I did like that. So the theming in this episode, brilliant, interesting. It doesn't even try to be too subtle about it, but it's subtle enough in a way where, people like me, I guess, might not recognize it at first, or might not even recognize it until the very end, where the episode again reminds you this is what we're actually talking about. I like that Doctor Who takes themes like this and just addresses them outright, because that's what this show has been doing for like more than 60 years now. Like I love that. It manages to wrap an interesting and important theme into a sci-fi story, because that is what sci-fi is supposed to do. Now, the story in and of itself, could it be more interesting? yes, maybe. I mean, we're stuck with a character who's not very likable. I mean, not likable at all, to be honest, by the end of the episode. But I think that's sort of also kind of the point, I think, because this, I will talk about it later in the spoiler bit, because this episode also asks questions about, who, just because we dislike someone or don't agree with them, does it still mean it's okay if something bad happens to them, Questions like that are being asked. And you may find yourself rooting for this character, like just for a little while maybe, but then you're reminded, okay, yeah, but this person is stuck in a kind of really horrible bubble, but do I still want them to be eaten by a horrible slug monster? Like, what's the balance here? Like that's also one of the questions that's being asked in this episode, and I think that's like one or two interesting elements are being brought up in this episode. The overall story, it's okay. Like, it's more so a vehicle for the overall theme, I think, than being there to like be a fun, shenanigans-filled sci-fi story. It's more focused on the theme and the characterization of the people we're following here, and of an exploration of this literal and figurative bubble that we have in this episode. So as a story in and of itself, it's maybe not as strong as some of the other episodes we've seen, like 73 Yards last week, for example. But it's more so overall about what's the story trying to tell us? Like, what are the story beats and the characters in the story actually here to tell us? It's much more about that. And again, it's, I think, one of those episodes that definitely benefits from like a rewatch value, I think, especially after the end, where you sort of realize, oh, this is what's actually been going on. Then you can sort of go back and see, okay, they've done this like from the beginning. So I think this is another very solid episode. It again feels a bit more experimental. I've mentioned that I'm a bit worried that this current series, does a lot of, sort of special episodes every week now. Like, there's always like a shtick we're doing. And considering that this series is not very long, it's only like 8 episodes long, we're more than halfway through already. I'm sort of missing out, just like these classic fun shenanigans Doctor Who episodes, where it's just the Doctor and their companion just, running down corridors, dealing with wacky aliens or historical setting or whatever. This series doesn't seem to be doing that this much, which I'm a little bit worried about, but then again, we're getting episodes like this, and also last week, which is playing with some really interesting themes, with some really interesting characterization. And I guess you'll maybe just have to see for yourself how you like the balance there. But I still think, nevertheless, that this week's episode, once again, was very interesting. Definitely worth another rewatch, I think. So, yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, go and do it. I think there's a lot of stuff to talk about there once you've finished the first watch of it. And now I'm just going to jump into some spoilers. I want to just talk about some details that I noticed while I watched the episode. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, this is your spoiler warning. Turn the video off now and you can come back later. Okay, so let's talk about just some more details in this episode that I enjoyed. We already talked about, this overall theme of that these people were following, especially also the young woman Lindy. They're racist, and they're not even just racist, they're white supremacists, essentially, as becomes very clear by the end of the episode. And I already mentioned it that I speak from a point of privilege, and it probably took me a bit longer than some other people to realize what was really going on, because at first, when we meet our sort of protagonist for this episode, and she encounters the Doctor for the first time on like the social media thing, she like blocks it because she's like irritated, because why is he there? But already at this point, you can recognize elements of the reveal that unfolds as you watch the episode, because no one in her social bubble is of color. They're all white people, all of them, blonde white people. They basically all look like cliche Nazis, like aesthetically speaking. And there's already like a first hint, which, which, I don't know, as a viewer, you might at first put off as like, well, the casting was a bit bad for that episode, wasn't it? There's only white people. But then you recognize, oh no, it's actually on purpose that they're doing that. And then you get the first encounter with the Doctor, and she's irritated. She's like, yeah, and like immediately dismisses him. And then when Ruby comes in, a white girl, blonde white girl, she also is dismissive of her, but willing to listen. She doesn't immediately block Ruby. She's annoyed with her, but willing to listen to a certain degree. Whereas when she encounters the Doctor, a black man, immediately dismissive in a way that says, like, I don't even want to talk to you. So there are already hints there. You see from the first interactions onwards, you see that she's much more willing to talk to Ruby, to listen to her, to do what she's saying. And even when the Doctor comes in, she knows that he's saying useful stuff, she's very dismissive of his opinion. She's bickering with him, like she's arguing with him, where she's not doing as much so when she's talking to Ruby. And this is already like early on, and you reckon, and I'm pretty sure if you pick up on this pretty early, you're already recognizing, oh, I know what we're doing here. I know what we're doing. And I just thought in the beginning, like just a little bit, it's like, oh, why is she being so mean to the Doctor? That was just like me thinking that. I was being like, well, she's listening to Ruby. She's being a bit unfair to the Doctor. That's weird. Like, I was already sort of halfway there, basically. And then she's trying to get out of there and lower the bubble. Again, the sort of idea of it's really hard for them to look beyond their own view. Like, they're stuck literally within their own opinions, within their own world. And if someone tells them to just like look beyond that, look beyond their own horizon, figuratively speaking, they just can't. They refuse, or it's very hard for them to even consider doing that at all. And then the story moves on. She recognizes those slugs, and she's trying to get away from them. And then she gets another call from the Doctor and from Ruby, and she talks to him. She's willing to sort of like listen to the Doctor this time. And this is where sort of the penny dropped for me. And then she like looks at the Doctor and was like, hey, didn't I block you? I thought you just looked the same. And I was like, oh, she's saying that because she thinks all black men look alike. That's when the penny dropped for me. And I was like, oh, like I was fully there. And I was like, oh, this is all this weird feeling I had about her when she's talking to the Doctor was on oh, okay, yeah, that's on purpose. Okay, yeah, we're doing that. Okay, we're doing that. And it's good we're doing that. And I think this, like, Lindy is really interesting because you already see sort of, because she seems, especially in the beginning, she seems like a relatively ordinary young girl, a young person. Sort of like your typical early 20s rich kid, because she is a rich kid, that's what's being mentioned in the episode. But there are things that pop up in the first like half of the episode where you're already starting to see the cracks of her worldview, of her bubble, of her opinions, where you're like, oh, well, that was a bit weird, or why did she say that? Like, you already get these feelings through like the first couple of interactions. And this thing just goes through the entire episode, which I loved. And then another aspect I want to talk about is we get this other character who's like the social media star, like Ricky September or something. What was his name? And I thought he was interesting because he had something very Doctor-ish about him. Like, it's very much, I think, intentionally written to feel like a Doctor companion dynamic once he saves her, and they hang out for a while throughout the episode. Like, they're running down corridors, holding hands. He's being very eccentric, spouting a lot of knowledge that she doesn't know about. She thinks he's a bit weird, but in a fun way, because he has knowledge that she's never even considered, and he's a bit wacky and weird, but in a fun way. You know, this dynamic and chemistry that we know from watching Doctor Who. And it just, I don't know, it felt interesting, but also very weird, because it felt like, oh, this is basically the version of Doctor Who set in a racist world, essentially. But then it gets double interesting when they're stuck like down there, well, not stuck, but they're like in this cellar room, essentially, punching in the numbers so they can open up a door to move on, to move to safety. And then Lindley realizes she's being attacked as as all the people who are disappearing or being eaten by slugs are all taken in alphabetical order. And she's coming up next. And her dot, so the thing that projects the bubble, is trying to kill her. And the social media star, Ricky September, says like, okay, you type in the numbers to open the door, I'm gonna take care of the machine that's trying to kill you, because it's out to get you but not me for now. And she punches in the numbers and tries to get the door open, and she manages to do it, but she's about to get murdered by the dot machine that's trying to get her. And in order to get it off her tail, she says, oh, Ricky September is not actually the boy's name. He was born, like his last name starts with a C. So alphabetically speaking, he should die before me because her last name ends with a P. And she like just sells him out. She gives him up for slaughter so she can save herself. Like Ricky September just looks at her not believing what's happening right now. And this was the moment that, like, honestly, I was like, what a fucking bitch. I mean, obviously she was before, because she's a racist white supremacist. But honestly, that's just hammered home the theme and the message of this entire thing, that yes, she's stuck in a bubble, and so is he. He is part of that bubble. But he's slightly different. And there's so many aspects of that, because he's on purpose written to be very doctor-ish, going by his personality. But whereas Lindy has been very dismissive of the actual doctor, who has a similar personality, she's been very dismissive of him, doesn't even want to talk to him, because he's a black man. So him having that kind of personality is weird, off-putting, dangerous, want nothing to do with him. Then she meets Ricky September. Similar personality, similar kind of knowledge, similar vibes. She's immediately smitten with him, big fan of him. And he's also kind of weird and eccentric, but in an attractive sort of way, because he is a white blonde boy from her bubble. So she is willing to trust him, even though she doesn't know him, or only knows him from social media. It's that same vibe. You immediately recognize there is a pattern. Even though these are exactly the same type of people, she only trusts this one person because of how they look. And then she sells him out, leaves him up for slaughter so she can save herself, leaves him to die. And it just shows that her bubble, her worldview, is so narrow that even people of her own ideology, she is willing to give up because they do not conform to her bubble just a tiny bit, because he's a tiny bit different. Even though 5 minutes ago she thought that was attractive. But when it comes down to it, when it comes down to life or death, when it's about her own life, her own like egocentric desires in that moment, she's like, fuck it, I don't care. It's all about her. It's about preserving her own life, her own ideas, her own ideology, her own bubble. She is stuck within that thinking. So she gives up that other man so she can live. And there's so many layers to that, I thought. There's so many layers to that moment. Even though, yes, that Ricky September character comes sort of out of nowhere and then just sort of hangs around with her for like 10 minutes and then he's gone. But the impact that moment has when she betrays him honestly says just a lot about this episode's theme and this character. And now we have to talk about the ending. And the ending is brilliant. It's just fantastic. I don't even honestly know what to say because it made me feel things. I don't even know what things it made me feel. I couldn't talk about it in the spoiler-free part because obviously it's the ending. So, so let's talk about it here for a minute. So Lindy gets to safety. She gets to the underground boat that could take her out of town, and she reconnects with some of the other people from her bubble that she's met. And this is where we see the Doctor and Ruby in person. They are there. They're trying to be like, hey, you made it, good for you. And they realize that those people, if they leave town and move on and go into the woods, that surrounds their city, they can't survive. They won't know how to take care of themselves. They will not be able to do this. And the Doctor offers to save them. Because he's like, I have a TARDIS, it's bigger on the inside, I could take all of you to safety. And then just like all breaks off, full on the racism in your face. Like Lindy and some of the other characters there turn around, look the Doctor in the eye, and are like, are you kidding me? We would never have contact with you. What are you thinking? This is not normal. This is not allowed. Who even are you? No. They're like, these people were white people. You're a black man. We would never get involved with you in any way, shape, or form. And that magic box you have there, they literally say it's voodoo. And here comes the thing. This is where the characterization of the Doctor is so strong in this episode, because the Doctor looks at these people, fully seeing who these people are, feeling this impact, also since the Doctor for the first time in his life is a black man, fully realizing what is happening right now, and that he's the one who's experiencing this. Still looks at these people and is like, I don't care what you believe. I don't like what you believe, but I don't care right now. I just want to save your lives, because that is what he does. That's what the Doctor does. He doesn't care that these are awful people. These are awful racists. Those people are awful white supremacists. And this is why this theme is coming again. Just because these are awful, horrible people, do they deserve to die? And of course the Doctor's like, no, and says, I want to help you, and begs them to come with him. And still they look at him and they're like, no, and turn around and leave. And Shutigawa's acting in that moment, it's just like a short scene at the end, not even 10 minutes, I think. And he nails it. Like, if you didn't have the this is the Doctor moment for this Doctor yet, this is it. This is the scene right here. Just the way in which he is able to convey these complex emotions that the Doctor must be feeling in that moment is utterly incredible. Like, he just has this sort of maniacal kind of laughter, as if he can't, because it's so unreal to him that these people are so close-minded in their ideology that they would refuse to accept help from a black man, even if it means they die. Like, he laughs, and then the laughs just turns into like anger and screaming, like he's almost looks like he wants to cry. That's how angry and frustrated he is with everything. And Ruby is just standing next to him, and also great like subtle acting from the Ruby actress there. She's just like standing there next to him, being like looks speechless, like she doesn't know what to do, because she knows what he must be feeling, but she doesn't fully get it because she's not him. But tries to like sort of be like, but also doesn't seem to know what to do. And that it's just such an incredible final moment for the Doctor here. Like this passion in his address as he tries to convince these people to just come with him, that he doesn't care that they hate him, he just wants to save their lives. But they still refuse. And he's just faced with this sense of anger and frustration, and he looks like he can't believe what's happening right now. And the way Shutigawa conveys it was perfect, honestly perfect. Like this, what I kind of had shivers watching that, because I was like, this is the Doctor. This is the Doctor right here. This is this is who this person is. Just nailed it. Just absolutely nailed it. And then the episode basically ends right there. And it doesn't even feel like a happy ending, because it really isn't, because you're sitting there being like, these people are so close-minded, they're so toxic, and maybe even full of hatred, not just in regards to people who are not like them, but maybe also hatred for themselves. But as long as the people they discriminate against suffer more than they do, they're okay with the situation. And that is such an unbelievably horrible concept to grasp, even though it is happening in the world right now, like all across the planet. And it's really, it leaves you with a feeling of like really strange anger and frustration. It just leaves you sitting there being like, oh, I don't, like, I was having the thing. I was sitting there at the end. I was like, I'm having feels. I'm having all kinds of feels. I'm having all kinds of feelings and emotions right now. I wasn't sure if I want to cry. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be angry. I don't know. It just leaves you with really complex feelings, and I think that's a good thing. Again, I think it's an episode you could rewatch a couple of times and pick up on new things and discover new things to analyze. Like it really is a thinker, and I think it's an episode that, while the story itself might not be brilliant, but the theming like lifts this episode up. And this final scene, which is not even like 10 minutes long, is so impactful that it just leaves you thinking for a long time. So this was once again, I think, a solid episode. Definitely left me thinking. Definitely, I think on the same level as 73 Yards. For me, we'll see where it's gonna go in the overall series ranking. But honestly, solid episode, stellar acting from Ncuti Gatwa yet again, and honestly, really good, solid theming. So that's it for this week's Doctor Who review. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you have any thoughts and opinions on this week's episode or on the other episodes that we've seen so far this series, put your opinions down in the comments below. As always, I would love to hear from you so we can talk about the episode. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. And I'll see all of you very soon. Goodbye.